Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Get ready to dive into one of the most exciting and powerful stories in the Bible. Today, we will relive the epic confrontation between Elijah and the prophets of Baal, a story filled with miracles, unwavering faith, and the manifestation of God's power. A story that inspires us to trust in the Lord, even in the most challenging times, and to remember that He always answers the prayers of those who seek Him sincerely. If you're ready to be inspired and strengthen your faith, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any content that edifies and transforms lives. Let's embark on this spiritual journey together. The story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal is one of the most iconic passages in the Bible, a narrative that highlights faithfulness to God amid spiritual corruption and idolatry. Elijah, a fearless prophet full of zeal for the Lord, emerges as a ray of light in a dark moment in Israel's history. King Ahab and his wife Jezebel had introduced the worship of Baal into the kingdom, leading the people to turn away from the true God. This is a story of courage, conviction, and, above all, of a God who answers those who seek Him with sincere hearts. Elijah was called by God to confront Ahab and challenge Israel's spiritual unfaithfulness. The prophet appeared before the king and proclaimed that because of the people's sin, there would be no rain or dew for several years, except at Elijah's word. This statement was not just a warning, but also a direct challenge to Baal, who was considered the god of fertility and rain. The drought that soon devastated the land was a powerful reminder that only the God of Israel had control over nature. During the years of drought, the land cracked, rivers dried up, and the people felt the severity of the punishment. The crops withered, the livestock weakened, and hunger and thirst became an inescapable reality. For those who trusted in the Lord, hope remained alive, like a flame in the darkness. During this period of drought, Elijah was instructed by God to hide by the brook Cherith, where he was miraculously sustained by ravens who brought him bread and meat. This miracle shows God's personal care for those who trust Him, even in times of extreme difficulty. The ravens, animals usually considered unclean, became instruments of divine provision, showing that God can use any means to fulfill His purposes. When the brook dried up, Elijah was sent to a widow in Zarephath, a humble woman in extreme poverty. Despite having only a handful of flour and a little oil, the widow, in obedience to Elijah's request, prepared him bread. As a result, God multiplied her resources, ensuring sustenance for all during the drought. This scene illustrates how obedience to God can open doors for extraordinary miracles, even in the most impossible situations. The act of sharing what little she had is a powerful lesson on trust and generosity. Each time the widow looked at the jar of oil and the jar of flour, she found a tangible reminder of God's provision. The widow's generosity is also a reminder that, even in times of scarcity, faith in the true God overcomes any difficulty. Later, when the widow's son fell seriously ill and died, Elijah cried out to the Lord, and God brought the boy back to life. This additional miracle strengthened the widow's trust in God, solidifying her faith in the power and goodness of the Lord. After 3 years of drought, God commanded Elijah to return to Ahab to announce the end of the drought and confront the prophets of Baal. Elijah challenged 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah to a public demonstration on Mount Carmel. The proposal was simple. Both sides would sacrifice a bull and call upon their gods. The God who answered with fire would be recognized as the true God. This challenge was not just a competition, but a call for the people to decide whom they would serve, the living God or the powerless idols. Imagine the growing tension as the people waited for the results of this extraordinary challenge. It was a spiritual battle and a decisive moment for Israel's faith. The prophets of Baal were the first to try. From morning until noon, they cried out to Baal, danced around the altar, and even cut themselves in an attempt to draw their god's attention. Elijah, on the other hand, mocked them, suggesting that Baal might be sleeping, busy, or on a journey. Despite their frantic efforts, no fire came down from the sky. This moment serves as a powerful illustration of the futility of trusting in false gods or things that cannot offer true help or salvation. Picture the scene, a bewildered people witnessing the uselessness of idolatrous practices and the growing hope that the God of Elijah would manifest. Baal's silence stood in stark contrast to the feverish expectation of those who had placed their trust in him. When it was Elijah's turn, he repaired the altar of the Lord, which was in ruins, using 12 stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel, symbolizing the unity of the people under God. He then prepared the sacrifice and ordered that large quantities of water be poured over the altar to make it clear that no human trick could cause the fire. Elijah then prayed to the Lord with simplicity and confidence, asking God to show the people that he was the only true God. Immediately, fire fell from heaven and consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench around the altar. The power of the Lord was demonstrated so clearly and undeniably that the people had no choice but to acknowledge, "The Lord is God, the Lord is God," the people. Witnessing this amazing miracle, fell to their faces and cried, "The Lord is God, the Lord is God." Elijah seized the moment to eliminate the prophets of Baal, purging the land of their corrupting influence. This event marked the triumph of the true God over idolatry and demonstrated that he is a living God who responds to those who call on him in truth. The elimination of the prophets of Baal also symbolized the end of an era of deception and the beginning of a spiritual restoration for Israel. Soon after, Elijah announced to Ahab that rain was on its way. He climbed to the top of Mount Carmel, bowed down in prayer, and sent his servant to look at the horizon. After 7 times, the servant reported the appearance of a small cloud, and shortly after, abundant rain fell upon the land, ending the drought. The symbolism of the small cloud growing to bring abundant rain reflects how hope and faith can transform into great blessings. The land, once dry and cracked, now received the drops that would renew life, symbolizing Israel's spiritual rebirth. This moment also highlights that God responds to persistent prayer and unwavering faith, even when the initial signs seem small or insignificant. The story of Elijah is a powerful message that God is sovereign, faithful, and able to do the impossible. Just as Elijah stood firm in his faith, even when he was in the minority, we are called to trust in God, regardless of the circumstances. The story challenges us to abandon any Baal in our lives, whether it be wealth, status, or other false supports, and turn completely to the true God, who never fails to demonstrate his love and power to those who seek him with all their hearts. Elijah's lesson continues to resonate, inviting us to live with bold faith and unwavering confidence in the Lord. In every challenge, we can remember that the same God who answered Elijah with fire is also willing to answer our prayers. However, Elijah did not stop there. After the great triumph on Mount Carmel, he faced new challenges, revealing that the journey of faith is not always free of difficulties, but God remains present in every step of the way. When Jezebel learned of the death of the prophets of Baal, she sent a message to Elijah, threatening his life. Fearing for his safety, Elijah fled to the desert, feeling overwhelmed and discouraged. He reached the point of asking the Lord to take his life, saying, "Enough, Lord, take my life. For I am no better than my ancestors." This moment of deep vulnerability shows that even God's most faithful servants can face times of exhaustion and doubt. But, as always, God did not abandon Elijah. As he slept under a tree, an angel of the Lord appeared and fed him, saying, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." With the strength from this meal, Elijah traveled for 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai. There, he sought refuge in a cave, where God spoke to him in an unexpected way. First, there was a strong wind that shattered the mountains, but God was not in the wind. Then there was an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. Next, there was a fire, but God was not in the fire. Finally, there was a gentle whisper, and it was there that Elijah found the presence of the Lord. This experience on Mount Horeb is a powerful reminder that God does not always manifest in grand or spectacular ways. Often, he speaks to us in moments of quiet, inviting us to listen to his voice with attention and humility. For Elijah, this encounter renewed his strength and purpose, showing that God still had plans for his life. God then gave Elijah clear instructions to return by the way he came and anoint new leaders who would be instruments of the Lord to bring justice and restoration to Israel. Additionally, God assured Elijah that he was not alone. There were 7,000 in Israel who had not bowed to Baal or kissed him. This revelation brought comfort and renewed Elijah's sense of mission, reminding him that his work was part of a bigger plan. The story of Elijah teaches us that even in our darkest moments, God is present to sustain and guide us. He calls us to continue our journey, trusting that his strength is enough to empower us. May we learn from Elijah's example and stand firm in our faith, knowing that the same God who answered with fire on Mount Carmel also speaks to us in the gentle whisper and guides us with love and faithfulness. What a wonderful story full of teachings for our lives. Elijah's journey shows us how God is sovereign, faithful, and always willing to respond to those who seek him with a sincere heart. From the confrontation on Mount Carmel to the encounter in the gentle whisper on Mount Horeb, we learn that God not only manifests his power in grand ways, but also reveals himself in moments of silence and intimacy. This story challenges us to trust in God even when everything seems lost and to be steadfast in faith, knowing that he always has a perfect plan for us. If this message touched your heart and inspired you, show your support by leaving a like. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you will be notified whenever new content filled with faith and hope is published. Share this video with those you love and who also need to be touched by this powerful message. May God abundantly bless your life, and we'll see you in the next video.